What's going on, family? Leon Timbo, and this is Indie Gospel Revealed.
All right, Leon Timbo tonight.
Hello.
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for asking.
It's good.
And I see that you are from
Jacksonville, Florida. I'm gonna do it again. Duval.
Go ahead and represent.
That's fine. We're country. It's the only city that the people of the city refer to the county instead of the city. Like we have a mayor and all, but Duval is kind of. We just country, so I'm sorry.
Country.
Yes.
Same background.
Come on.
I can't tell you nothing different. Well, I listened to some interviews of you before, and I know that you have a church background.
Yes.
But you're called to the world.
Well, yeah.
Okay, how did you make that transition out?
Well, I made the transition. I use a phrase. I'm in love with Jesus, but I hate church folk. I think that people hide behind. It's kind of like Christian protective services because they're afraid to be transparent. They're afraid to be honest. They're afraid of the process of Jesus dealing with their hearts. So they're behind Christian protective services to not have to. And you don't find out who you really are until you're in the face of somebody that looks the way you used to look. You don't find where that partition, that demarcation line really is until you're held in a position of having to bless somebody that was in the position you used to be in. So I think a lot of Christians are afraid of that. They're afraid of that moment of failure process, not being up to par. And I think it's because they have a limited perspective of who Jesus is, limited perspective of who God is in their lives. I tend to believe, I'm a preacher's kid, problem. I'm a preacher's kid. They have this, we all may be this way, but I know they have this idea of God being themselves, but 1,000 times better. Like, if I don't like this, God must not like this. And that's not really, he says in context, in the context of righteousness, he says, my ways are not your ways, my thoughts are not your thoughts. It doesn't say that we cannot achieve his thoughts or his ways. He just makes a distinction. And I think what we do is we just try to personify God. And that God's feelings keeps him from blessing us the way we should be blessed. Those things are inaccurate to me, because that would defeat the idea of him being God. I mean, the moment God tries to do anything is the moment he ceases to be God. God knows my end from my beginning. Therefore, nothing catches him by surprise. And I'm just going to step on a lot of sacred cows since we sitting here having this conversation. The idea that God's testing you, God's proving you. God didn't test Job. God knew what was in Job. God used Job. His test was his use. And so oftentimes, well, God's just testing me for my blessing. And no, he's not. It's almost like God's trying to find out what he going to do with you. That's not who he is. That's not who Jesus came to be. Jesus' role was very specific. And I believe our roles are as well. So you ask me, why am I in the world? Because I'm super confident in what God's placed me in, my weaknesses, my strengths. I'm confident that he has the ability to supersede my ignorance and use me to his perfection.
But how did it happen?
It's still happening.
Like, okay, take me to, I'm playing in church, right. I'm being a PK, to that.
I never played in church.
Well,
this is the deal. I didn't start singing until I was 17.
Okay.
So I didn't grow up kind of singing in the choir, blah, 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 blah. I was part of the Sunshine Band, just beating up kids, just everybody did it, coaching. But I didn't start being musically inclined until I was in my later teens.
Okay.
So I wasn't really drawn to that space or pulled in that space. I actually, and when I did start, no, there's a little lie to that. When I did start singing 18, 19 in church, I was so not connected to the culture of church that my first concert outside of the church was in a gay theater in Jacksonville. And so I used to do the poetry scenes in Jacksonville to sing my love music and something outside of the box because I know churches wouldn't let me do it, right? Right. So I did that, and everybody was like, don't go to that theater. Those guys are gay. And so we did it the day after Christmas. Mm-hmm. The place was called Boomtown. And every restaurant on Main Street was running. And Boomtown was going to close early, but because I asked for that space, they stayed open. And it was a revival in me as to what my purpose was. But for them, they had like made almost $15,000 in profit on a night that they would have closed early, the day after Christmas. So not only did God give me a freedom in my life, but he also gave them a freedom. And I later found out that those two guys, one of those two guys accepted the Lord because of the seed that was planted that day. So unfortunately, as much as ignorant as I am about what I do, God's still super faithful in using me to do what he's already planned for me to do. Okay. That's how.
All right.
Woo!
All right. So you're in this secular scene.
Yeah.
God comes up how?
God comes up every way. Like, I wish he was in a meeting. He comes up. If I'm talking about love, love is the only thing God defines himself by. Like God, who is everything and all things, says, I am love and love is me. Which means there's an aspect of this love thing that we've not completely apprehended. And it is the part of love that is empowering. The Bible says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your mind, all your soul, love your neighbor as yourself. Now, I believe that's the Trinity of worship. Personally, Paul didn't say it. This is my idea. I could be dead wrong. But it's the idea of how can I love God with everything I have if I don't love people the way he loves people? And if there is no expression of that love that talks about the proper way to love people, how can I love God with all I have if I don't see me the way he sees me? How can I trust him with everything I have and say I love him if I'm second guessing everything he said about me? It's that process that the world is very clear about hearing and changing. It's the casing of religion that we sometimes drift into that makes it difficult for them to swallow. They can't swallow the culture because they don't know the language, but they can swallow the truth. And that's all I give them. That's how he shows up.
Give me one more transition time. How did you know that this went from like small secular location to now traveling the world?
I was at Bishop Jake's church when my next transition took place. Tyrese was in the audience. Okay. He didn't come to see me. He came to talk to Bishop. And so in that service, he came up and talked to me after service and said, I'm doing a show at the House of Blues. Now, mind you, I'm at Bishop Jake's church. This is it. You know, who else are you gonna go to? Let's just be honest. It's just too late not to be. So who else? And so in that moment, God gives another stage to me. Terry says, I'm opening up at the House of Blues. I want whatever you did there to be at the House of Blues. Not knowing what was already planted in me, not knowing the gay theater that I was in 4 years prior, but God had a sovereign move ready for me by just walking forward. Those transitions just come as you're moving in what you're moving in. For instance, you're interviewing me now, but what's going to happen when you get a call from somebody that might not be Christian and they say, well, we want to talk and we like the way you do what you're doing. Can you talk to us? The transition takes place and the kingdom is called on to be an authority. You're just a conductor. You're just something to be used. And you're going to do it faithfully and God's going to show up in it. That's how.
I got one more.
We was done.
No, I need to know this from you.
Okay.
Because here's the thing. You come from church, and then you go out secular. You really have to be anchored. I say that, but you have to be anchored anyway. So scratch that. Point being, what is that testimony that you have that keeps you anchored? That's like, okay, I'm not gonna come out in the world and see another religion that I like. What's that time that you and God had that?
What I think it's a daily thing, and I tell you why. I'm just not that good. I'm just not that amazing. The fact that I keep doing what I'm doing and people are changed and people want to hear about it is evidence enough. You know, they're drinking the Kool-Aid. It's not for me. I never drink this Kool-Aid. I know who I am inside, and I know that he knows who I am inside. And now anchored, if I am anchored in anything, I am anchored in the fact that I am inadequate alone.
Okay.
I don't know enough scriptures, I never will. I don't have enough Jesus, I never will. But what I do know is that he has me. And it's that freedom. I'm not afraid of failure. I'm not afraid, even in business. Donald Trump is a prime example. Donald Trump isn't an amazing businessman. He isn't an amazing businessman because he's only made great decisions. He's an amazing businessman because of how many bankruptcies he's come back from. Abraham Lincoln, what is this, 11, 12 offices that he was rejected from, you know, he lost. How many times do you keep going for office and losing? I don't have a problem with failure. In business, that's not a problem with failure. But in church culture, the idea of failure is some kind of way, this thing that we try to escape from pain. James 1 says to take pain on like a present, like a gift. James, and we preach, get away from it, get past it. James says, and I don't know how deep my theology is. I always like to think that this is the same James that stood up in Acts. I could be dead wrong, so don't take that to the Bible. But James said, take this problem, this trial that you're going through, and consider it a gift. Pain is not an enemy of ours. Pain is not a problem. Pain is an indicator. So you give me a person with a problem in their body and no pain to indicate it, I give you a very dangerous person to themselves. But in church we preach, don't fail, don't miss God. Joyce Meyer says it best, Lord, what if I miss you? Don't worry, Joyce, I'll find you. It's the idea of knowing that without him, you can do nothing. We say it, but we don't believe it. We feel like there's something in us that's got to meet him halfway. You're filthy rags. What does that mean? It means that I'm going to do all that I can, which is a little bit, and he's going to do that great big that I could never do. And it's that trust. That is my anchor. My anchor isn't be strong. My anchor is I'm weak. My anchor isn't no word. My anchor is he never leaves me. It's that process that gives us strength.
Love. Thank you. I'm going to leave you alone now.
Okay.
You got more in you, right?
No, I'm good.
Because somebody out there needs it.
I'm good. Love y'all.